Hello, my dear friends. Welcome to English in Fluency. I'm your host, Alex, and I'm so glad you've decided to spend some time with me today. Before we begin, I want you to think about something. A dream you hold close to your heart. It could be anything. Maybe it's the dream of speaking English fluently, so you can connect with people from all over the world. Maybe it's a dream of starting your own business, writing a book, or getting into the best shape of your life. We all have these beautiful shining goals in our minds, don't we? They feel so clear, so possible in our moments of inspiration. But then, life happens. The motivation you felt on Monday morning fades by Tuesday afternoon. The promise you made to yourself to study for an hour gets replaced by just one more episode on Netflix. The path to your dream, which seemed so straight and clear, suddenly becomes foggy and filled with distractions. You know what you need to do, but for some reason, you just don't do it. And this gap, this painful space between the person you want to be and the person you are right now, is filled with frustration, guilt, and disappointment. Have you ever felt that? If you have, I want you to know you are not alone. This is not a sign that you are weak, or lazy, or not good enough. It's a sign that you are human. But what if I told you there is a bridge across that gap? A tool so powerful it can turn your biggest dreams into your daily reality. It's not about finding more motivation, which comes and goes like the weather. It's not about having more willpower, which is a limited resource that runs out. The secret, the key, is learning how to discipline your mind. Today, we are going on a journey together. We're going to explore what self-discipline truly is, not as a punishment, but as the ultimate act of self-love. We'll uncover why our minds naturally resist discipline and how we can gently, but firmly, train them to work for us, not against us. Through powerful stories and simple practical steps, you will learn how to build a system for success in any area of your life, especially in your English learning journey. So, if you're ready to stop waiting for motivation and start building a life of intention, focus, and achievement, then stay with me. This conversation could be the beginning of everything you've ever wanted. Let's begin by painting a picture of something we all know too well: the undisciplined mind. It's a place of chaos, a constant battle between our best intentions and our immediate desires. It's the voice that whispers, "I'll do it tomorrow," even though we know tomorrow often never comes. Let me tell you a story about a young man named Leo. Leo was an aspiring artist, and he was brilliant. His friends and family would look at his sketches and see a raw, undeniable talent. He had a unique way of capturing light, and his ideas were fresh and exciting. In his small, cluttered studio, canvases were propped against every wall, but nearly all of them were unfinished. One canvas showed the beginning of a breathtaking cityscape at dawn, with strokes of orange and purple paint that were full of energy. But it had been sitting there for 3 months, collecting dust. Another showed the portrait of a woman, her eyes filled with a deep, mysterious emotion. He'd abandoned it after struggling with the shape of her hand. Leo's problem wasn't a lack of talent or a lack of ideas. His problem was a mind that constantly pulled him away from his work. He would wake up in the morning, filled with determination. Today, he would tell himself, today I will finish the cityscape. He would set up his easel, mix his paints, and for the first 10 minutes, he would be completely lost in his art. It was magical. But then, a thought would flicker in his mind. I wonder what's happening on social media? It was a tiny thought, almost insignificant, but it was a seed. He'd tell himself, just a 5-minute break. It will help me refresh my mind. But 5 minutes would turn into 30, as he scrolled through an endless feed of other people's lives, other people's successes. When he finally returned to his canvas, the magic was gone. The creative flow was broken. He'd look at his painting, and a new voice would start to whisper. The voice of doubt. This isn't very good, is it? That other artist I just saw online is so much better. Why am I even trying? The frustration would build, and soon he'd feel a wave of exhaustion. He would decide that maybe he just wasn't inspired today. He'd clean his brushes, put the unfinished canvas back against the wall, and promise himself, once again, I'll do it tomorrow. This was Leo's cycle, a cycle of starting with passion, getting distracted, falling into doubt, and then procrastinating. His studio, which should have been a place of creation and joy, had become a museum of his own broken promises. Does any part of Leo's story feel familiar to you? Maybe you're not an artist, but perhaps you're a student of English. You sit down with your textbook, ready to learn a new grammar rule. You're focused for a few minutes, but then your phone buzzes. A notification, a message from a friend. You think, I'll just reply quickly. And just like Leo, you fall down a rabbit hole of distractions. When you finally look up, an hour has passed, and your book is still open to the same page. The motivation is gone, replaced by a feeling of guilt. This happens because our brains are wired for instant gratification. They are designed to seek pleasure and avoid discomfort in the short term. The hard work of painting a masterpiece or learning a new language offers a delayed reward. It's difficult now for a benefit that will come much later. Scrolling through social media, watching a funny video, or eating a sugary snack. These things offer an immediate hit of pleasure. Your brain sees the choice between the hard thing with a future reward and the easy thing with an immediate reward, and it almost always chooses the easy thing. This isn't a moral failing. It's just how our brains are built. The undisciplined mind is simply a mind that is following its most basic, ancient programming. But the good news is, we are not just our programming. We have the power to retrain our minds. And the very first step on that journey is not about force or willpower. It's about something much gentler and much more powerful. It's about awareness. Now, take a moment with me. Think about that one important goal you've been putting off. That one thing you know would make your life better. What is it? And now, think about what pulls you away. What are the distractions, the thoughts, or the feelings that get in the way? Just noticing them is the first brave step out of Leo's cycle. So, how do we begin to tame this wild, undisciplined mind? Many people believe the answer is to fight it, to force it into submission with sheer willpower. They try to white-knuckle their way through distractions, gritting their teeth and commanding themselves to focus. But this approach rarely works in the long run. It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. You can do it for a little while, but it takes an immense amount of energy. And the moment your focus slips, the ball shoots back up to the surface. The true path to disciplining the mind begins not with a fight, but with a simple, quiet observation. The foundation of all change is self-awareness. You simply cannot change a habit that you don't even realize you have. Let me share another story with you, this time about a woman named Maya. Maya had recently started her own small business, an online shop selling handmade jewelry. She was passionate and hardworking, but she felt constantly overwhelmed. She worked from sunrise to sunset, but at the end of the day, she would look at her to-do list and see that the most important tasks were still undone. She felt like she was running on a treadmill, moving her legs frantically, but not actually going anywhere. She was busy, but she wasn't productive. Frustrated and on the verge of burnout, she spoke to a mentor who gave her some unexpected advice. The mentor didn't tell her to work harder. Instead, she said, "For 1 week, I want you to become a scientist of your own life. Your only job is to observe and record. Get a small notebook, and every time you find yourself switching from an important task to something else, just write down what you did, what time it was, and how you were feeling." Maya was skeptical. How could writing in a notebook help her get more work done? It seemed like another waste of time. But she was desperate, so she decided to try it. She called it her distraction journal. The first day, the results were shocking. She sat down at 9 a.m. to work on her business finances, a task she had been dreading. Within 15 minutes, she found herself mindlessly checking her email. She stopped, took out her journal, and wrote, 9:15 a.m., switched to checking email. Feeling bored, a little anxious about the finances. Later that morning, while trying to design a new piece of jewelry, she found herself scrolling through her competitors' social media pages. She wrote in her journal, 11:30 a.m., scrolled Instagram. Feeling insecure, comparing myself to others. She continued this for the entire week. When she reviewed her journal on Sunday, the patterns were crystal clear. She discovered that she spent nearly 3 hours every day on unproductive tasks, mostly checking emails and social media. She also noticed that her urge to get distracted was strongest when she was facing a task that was either difficult or boring. And most importantly, she realized that her negative self-talk, the voice that said, "You're not good enough," was loudest in the late afternoon, when her energy was low. For the first time, her enemy wasn't some vague, mysterious force of procrastination. It was a clear, predictable set of habits and triggers. This awareness was her turning point. It wasn't about judging herself. It was about understanding herself. She wasn't lazy. She was just running on autopilot. With this new clarity, she could start making small, strategic changes. She decided to check her emails only twice a day, at noon and at 4 p.m. She used an app to block social media websites during her focused work hours. And she scheduled her most creative, difficult tasks for the morning, when her energy was highest, saving the easier tasks for the afternoon. Within a month, her business was thriving, and more importantly, she felt in control and at peace. She was no longer just busy, she was effective. Maya's story shows us that self-awareness is like turning on a light in a dark room. Suddenly, you can see where all the obstacles are. Without it, you're just stumbling around, tripping over the same things again and again. So, let's try a little awareness exercise right now, wherever you are. You don't need a journal for this, just your mind. I want you to just pause for a second. If you can, close your eyes, and just notice your own mind. What is it doing right now? Is it focused on my voice? Or is it wandering? Is it thinking about your to-do list? Or what you're going to have for dinner? Is there a feeling present in your body? Maybe a sense of calm or restlessness, or tiredness. Don't try to change anything. Don't judge it. Just be the scientist. Just observe. Okay, you can open your eyes. That simple act of noticing, of checking in with yourself, is the beginning of self-discipline. If you want to take it a step further, I invite you to try Maya's technique for just one day. Keep a piece of paper nearby, and just make a small note whenever you get distracted from your main task. You might be surprised by what you discover about your own patterns. This understanding is the soil in which all meaningful change can grow. Once you have the light of awareness, once you can see the patterns that hold you back, the next step is to build a new system. Many people make a critical mistake at this stage. They try to change everything at once. Inspired by their new awareness, they create huge, ambitious goals. They say, "From now on, I will study English for 3 hours every single day, without fail." Or, "I will wake up at 5 a.m. and exercise for an hour, no matter what." This kind of massive, heroic effort might work for a day or two, fueled by a burst of motivation. But it's almost always unsustainable. It's like trying to build a skyscraper without a foundation. It will quickly collapse under its own weight. True, lasting discipline is not built on grand gestures. It is forged in the quiet repetition of incredibly small, almost laughably easy actions. It's about building a system of habits, not just chasing goals. Let me tell you about a man named Daniel. Daniel wanted to get fit. He was in his 40s, worked a desk job, and felt tired and unhealthy most of the time. His doctor told him he needed to exercise. So, like many people, Daniel bought a gym membership. He told himself he would go to the gym 3 times a week for an hour. The first week, he went twice. The second week, he went once. By the third week, he wasn't going at all. The gym felt intimidating. He didn't know how to use the machines. He felt self-conscious. And after a long day at work, the thought of driving there, changing, working out, showering, and driving back was just completely overwhelming. He felt like a failure. He complained to a friend who had recently lost a lot of weight and seemed full of energy. His friend listened patiently and then said, "You're trying to climb the whole mountain in one day. Forget the gym. Forget the 1-hour workouts. I want you to make a new rule for yourself. It's very simple. Every day, after you get home from work, I want you to put on your running shoes and just walk to the end of your street and back." Daniel laughed. "That's it? That's not a workout. That will only take 2 minutes." His friend smiled. "Exactly. It's so easy, you can't possibly say no. Just do that, every single day for a month." Daniel thought it was a silly idea, but he agreed to try it. The first day, he came home, and his brain started its usual excuses. "I'm tired. I have other things to do." But then he remembered his promise. Just put on the shoes and walk to the end of the street. It seemed so ridiculously easy that his brain couldn't find a good reason to resist. So he did it. It took less than 5 minutes. The next day, he did it again. And the next. After a week of just walking to the end of the street, he found himself thinking, "Well, I'm already out here with my shoes on. I might as well walk around the block." So he did. A few weeks later, his short walk had naturally turned into a 15-minute walk around his neighborhood. He started to enjoy the fresh air, the feeling of moving his body. One day, during his walk, he felt a little burst of energy and decided to jog for 1 block. It was hard, but it felt good. Slowly, over many months, Daniel's 2-minute habit grew. The walk became a walk-jog, and the walk-jog eventually became a steady run. A year after his friend gave him that simple advice, Daniel ran his first 5K race. He hadn't achieved his goal through a massive act of willpower. He had achieved it by mastering the art of showing up, by building the habit so small it was impossible to skip. He didn't focus on the goal of running a race. He focused on the system of putting on his shoes every day. This is the power of what some people call the 2-minute rule. When you want to build a new habit, scale it down to something that takes less than 2 minutes to do. Read more becomes read 1 page. Study English becomes open my textbook and learn 1 new vocabulary word. Meditate every day becomes sit in a chair and take 3 deep breaths. The point isn't the action itself. The point is to make the act of starting easy and automatic. Anyone can read 1 page. Anyone can learn 1 word. Once you've started, it's much easier to continue. The momentum is on your side. You are not trying to build the habit of studying for an hour. You are building the habit of starting to study. That is the most crucial part. So, let's apply this directly to your English practice. What is your 2-minute habit? What is 1 tiny, simple action that you can commit to doing every single day? Maybe it's listening to the first 2 minutes of this podcast again and repeating 1 sentence you hear. Maybe it's writing a single sentence in English in a journal. Perhaps it's saying, "Good morning" in English to yourself in the mirror. Choose something so easy that your brain can't argue with it. This isn't about making massive progress today. It's about building an identity. You are becoming the kind of person who shows up for their English practice every day. And that identity, built 1 tiny action at a time, is the most powerful force for achieving your long-term goals. Building small, consistent habits like Daniel did is a fundamental piece of the puzzle. But in our modern world, there is a powerful enemy that works against our consistency every single day. Distraction. We live in an environment that is designed to steal our attention. Our phones buzz, our computers chime with notifications, and there is an infinite world of entertainment just a click away. Relying on willpower alone to resist these temptations is a losing battle. A more effective strategy is to become the architect of your own environment, to consciously design a space that makes your good habits easy and your bad habits hard. Think about it this way. Imagine you are trying to eat healthier. If you keep your kitchen cupboards filled with cookies, chips, and candy, you will have to make dozens of high willpower decisions every day to resist them. Every time you feel a little hungry or bored, you have to fight a battle with yourself. But what if you designed your environment differently? What if you simply didn't buy the junk food in the first place? What if your cupboards were filled with healthy snacks, and you had a bowl of fresh fruit sitting on the counter? You've removed the battle. You've made the good choice, the easy choice. This principle of controlling your environment is one of the most powerful secrets to self-discipline. Let me tell you about Chloe, a young student who was preparing for a very important university entrance exam. This exam would determine her future, and she knew she had to study hard. Chloe was intelligent and motivated, but she had a powerful weakness: her smartphone. She would sit down at her desk, determined to study for hours, but then a notification would pop up. A like on her photo. A message in a group chat. She would tell herself, "I'll just check it for a second." But that 1 second would stretch into minutes, and sometimes even an hour. She would fall into a loop of scrolling, watching videos, and chatting with friends. When she finally forced herself back to her books, her focus was shattered, and she felt anxious and guilty. She tried using willpower. She would place her phone face down on the desk, telling herself, "I will not touch it." But the mere presence of the phone was a constant distraction. Her mind kept wondering if she had new messages. The effort of resisting the urge to check was draining her mental energy, leaving less energy for actual studying. She was losing the battle. Finally, she realized she couldn't win by fighting herself. She had to change the battlefield. She decided to create a study sanctuary, a space designed for pure focus. Her first rule was simple but radical. When it was time to study, her phone would not be in the same room. She started leaving it in the kitchen, on silent. The first few days were difficult. She felt a phantom buzz in her pocket, an itch to check for notifications. But without the phone physically present, the urge was much weaker. The friction of having to get up, walk to another room, and get her phone was enough to stop her from acting on the impulse. Next, she tackled her computer. She downloaded a website blocker and created a list of all the distracting sites, social media, news websites, video platforms. During her designated study blocks, she would turn on the blocker, making it impossible to access them. Finally, she dealt with human distractions. She put a small, polite sign on her bedroom door that said, "Studying for my future. Please do not disturb unless it's an emergency." "Thank you." She explained to her family how important this was, and they agreed to respect her focused time. The change was profound. Without the constant interruptions, her mind was able to enter a state of deep focus. An hour of studying in her sanctuary felt more productive than 3 hours of her old, distracted studying. She was less stressed, more confident, and her practice test scores began to improve dramatically. Chloe didn't magically get more willpower. She just made discipline the path of least resistance. She made it easier to do the right thing and harder to do the wrong thing. Now, I want you to take a look at your own environment. Think about the space where you normally study English. Look around you right now, or picture it in your mind. What are the distractions? Is your phone on the desk next to you? Is the television on in the background? Are there multiple tabs open on your computer that have nothing to do with learning? What is one small change you can make to your environment right now to reduce the friction for studying and increase the friction for distraction? Maybe, like Chloe, you can move your phone to another room for just 30 minutes while you study. Maybe you can close all the unnecessary tabs before you begin. Or perhaps you can find a specific, quiet corner in your home that becomes your designated English zone. By consciously shaping your world, you give your mind the best possible chance to succeed. You stop relying on the fleeting power of motivation and start relying on the steady power of a well-designed system. We've talked about shaping our external world, our environment, to support our discipline. This is a crucial step. But there is another world we must learn to manage, a world that is even closer to us, our internal world, the world of our thoughts. The greatest battles of self-discipline are often fought not on our desks or in our kitchens, but in the 6 inches of space between our ears. Our minds are relentless chatterboxes, producing thousands of thoughts every day. And many of those thoughts can be our own worst enemies. They are the voices of doubt, fear, and negativity that sabotage our efforts before we even begin. This is the inner battle, and mastering your thoughts is perhaps the most advanced form of self-discipline. Let me share the story of Ben. Ben was a kind, intelligent man who worked as a project manager. He was excellent at his job in every aspect, except one: public speaking. The mere thought of giving a presentation in front of a group of people filled him with a cold, paralyzing dread. His heart would pound, his palms would sweat, and his mind would be flooded with a storm of negative what-if scenarios. What if I forget what I'm supposed to say? What if they think my ideas are stupid? What if my voice shakes and everyone sees how nervous I am? I'm going to fail. I always fail at this. These thoughts weren't just thoughts. To Ben, they felt like facts. They were predictions of a terrible future that seemed absolutely certain. As a result, he would avoid presentations whenever possible. When he couldn't avoid them, he would stumble through them, his performance crippled by his own anxiety, which only confirmed his belief that he was a terrible public speaker. It was a vicious cycle. His fear was being fueled by his own mind. One day, his boss told him he had to lead a presentation for a very important client. This was his chance for a promotion, and he couldn't say no. Panicked, Ben sought help from a coach who specialized in performance anxiety. The coach didn't teach him new speaking techniques. Instead, she taught him how to discipline his mind. She introduced him to a simple but powerful technique: catching, checking, and changing his thoughts. The first step was to catch the negative thought. He had to become aware of the exact words his mind was saying. So, whenever he felt that familiar wave of anxiety about the presentation, he would pause and ask himself, "What am I telling myself right now?" He started writing them down. The list was long. "You're going to make a fool of yourself. They will all be bored. You are not qualified to do this." The second step was to check the thought. This meant questioning it like a detective. Was the thought 100% true? So, when his mind screamed, "You're going to fail," he learned to ask himself, "Is that absolutely, certainly true? Is there any evidence to the contrary? Haven't I successfully explained ideas to my team before? Don't I know this project material better than anyone?" He realized that his thoughts were not facts. They were just his brain's worst-case scenario guesses. The third and final step was to change the thought. This didn't mean replacing a negative thought with an overly positive one like, "I'm the best speaker in the world." That wouldn't feel believable. It meant replacing it with a more balanced, realistic, and helpful thought. So, "I'm going to fail" was changed to, "I feel nervous, and that's normal. But I have prepared thoroughly, and I am capable of delivering the good presentation. It doesn't have to be perfect." The thought, "What if they think I'm stupid?" was changed to, "I have valuable information to share. I will focus on delivering it clearly and helping them understand." Ben practiced this mental discipline every day, leading up to the presentation. It was like training a muscle. Every time the negative thought appeared, he would catch it, check it, and change it. On the day of the presentation, he still felt nervous. But the crippling fear was gone. The storm of negative thoughts had been replaced by a quiet, steady voice of realistic confidence. He walked to the front of the room, took a deep breath, and began to speak. He delivered a clear, confident, and successful presentation. He hadn't just disciplined his actions, he had disciplined the source of his fear, his own mind. Now, let's try this together. Think about a negative thought you often have related to your English speaking. A very common one is, "My accent is bad," or "People will laugh at me." Let's catch that thought. Now, let's check it. Is it 100% true that your accent is bad? Or is it just different from a native speaker's accent? Does having an accent mean you are a poor communicator? Absolutely not. There are millions of successful, intelligent, and respected people all over the world who speak English with an accent. Now, let's change it. Instead of "My accent is bad," what is a more helpful and realistic thought? How about, "I have an accent, and it's a part of my story. I am focused on speaking clearly, and I get better with every conversation." Can you feel the difference? The first thought creates fear and makes you want to be silent. The second thought creates acceptance and encourages you to speak. This is mental discipline. It's the gentle but firm practice of becoming the guide of your own mind, rather than its prisoner. As we go deeper into the art of disciplining the mind, it's easy to fall into a common trap. We start to believe that discipline is a relentless, non-stop grind. We picture a super-disciplined person as someone who wakes up before dawn, works for 18 hours straight, and never takes a break. We think discipline means pushing harder, doing more, and constantly fighting against our body's desire for rest. But this is a dangerous misunderstanding. In fact, true, sustainable self-discipline includes a crucial, often overlooked element: the discipline of rest. Trying to be productive without adequate rest is like trying to drive a car across the country without ever stopping for gas. You might go fast for a while, but eventually you will run out of fuel and the car will grind to a halt on the side of the road. This is what we call burnout. It's a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion caused by prolonged stress. And paradoxically, it is often the most ambitious and disciplined people who are at the highest risk of burnout, because they forget that recovery is not a sign of weakness. It is an essential part of the performance cycle. Let me tell you a story about Sarah, a brilliant young software developer who had just landed her dream job at a fast-paced tech startup. The culture at the company was intense. Everyone seemed to be working around the clock, fueled by caffeine and ambition. Sarah wanted to prove herself, so she adopted the same lifestyle. She would arrive at the office early and leave late, often working 12-hour days. She sacrificed her sleep, surviving on 5 hours a night. She stopped going to her weekly yoga class and barely had time to talk to her friends and family. Her life became her work. In the beginning, her hard work paid off. She was incredibly productive, solving complex coding problems and impressing her managers. She felt a thrill from her own performance. But after a few months, things started to change. The code that used to flow easily from her fingertips now felt clunky and difficult. She started making small, careless mistakes that she would then have to spend hours fixing. She felt constantly tired, irritable, and a fog of mental exhaustion seemed to hang over her all day. The creativity and passion she once felt for her work were disappearing, replaced by a sense of dread each morning. She was on the fast track to burnout. One day, her team leader, a wise and experienced manager named David, asked to speak with her. He didn't criticize her work. Instead, He gently asked, "Sarah, when was the last time you took a real break? When was the last time you did something just for fun, with no goal attached?" Sarah was taken aback. She mumbled something about being too busy. David smiled kindly and said, "I used to think like you. I thought success meant outworking everyone. I burned out twice before I learned the most important lesson. The best work comes from a rested mind. Your brain is a muscle. If you keep lifting the heaviest weights without ever letting it recover, it will tear. Rest isn't the opposite of work. It's the partner of work." He challenged her to try an experiment. For 2 weeks, she had to leave the office by 6 p.m., get at least 8 hours of sleep every night, and schedule one activity each week that had nothing to do with work, like her old yoga class or a hike in the woods. Sarah was terrified. She thought she would fall behind. But she trusted David, so she agreed. The first few days felt strange, almost lazy, but by the end of the first week, she noticed a change. She was waking up feeling refreshed. The mental fog began to lift. When she was at work, she found she could focus more deeply and solve problems more quickly. Her creativity started to return. By the end of the 2 weeks, she was getting more high-quality work done in 8 hours than she had previously been doing in 12. And more importantly, she felt happy and engaged again. She learned that discipline isn't just about forcing yourself to do hard things. It's also about having the discipline to stop, to recharge, and to honor your body's and mind's need for recovery. So I want to ask you, how do you rest? And I don't just mean sleep, although that is incredibly important. What do you do to truly recharge your mental batteries? Many of the things we think of as rest, like scrolling through social media or watching television, aren't actually restorative. They are often just low-level distractions that still consume mental energy. True rest is something that calms your nervous system and allows your mind to wander freely. It could be a quiet walk in nature, listening to a piece of music without doing anything else, spending time on a hobby you love, or simply sitting in silence for 10 minutes. As you build your system of discipline for learning English, make sure to schedule in periods of true, intentional rest. Your brain needs this downtime to consolidate what you've learned, to make new connections, and to be ready for the next challenge. Remember Sarah's lesson. A disciplined mind is a rested mind. Now we arrive at a moment of truth on our journey of self-discipline. We've talked about awareness, small habits, our environment, our thoughts, and the importance of rest. It can all sound so perfect, so systematic. But we must face a simple and universal reality. You will fail. There will be a day when you are too tired, too busy, or too unmotivated, and you will break your new habit. You will skip your 2-minute English practice. You will eat the junk food you were trying to avoid. You will get lost in distraction for an hour. In that moment, what you do next is more important than all the perfect days you had before. This is where most people's journey with self-discipline ends. They fall into the all-or-nothing trap. Their mind tells them a story. You've broken the chain. You've failed. You're just not a disciplined person. Since you've already ruined your streak, you might as well give up completely for the rest of the day or the week. This single mistake snowballs into a complete abandonment of the goal. But a truly disciplined mind understands that the path to success is not a straight line. It's a messy, winding road with occasional stumbles. The real skill is not perfection. It's the ability to get back on track quickly and compassionately. Let me tell you about a writer named Mark. Mark was working on his first novel, a lifelong dream. He knew that consistency was key, so he set a goal for himself. He would write 500 words every single day, no exceptions. For the first 2 months, he was a machine. He hit his target every day, and the chain of successes on his calendar felt incredible. He was building momentum and felt unstoppable. But one Tuesday, everything went wrong. He had a crisis at his day job. His car broke down on the way home, and by the time he finally sat down at his desk in the evening, he was physically and emotionally drained. He stared at the blank page, but the words wouldn't come. He wrote nothing. The next morning, he woke up with a heavy feeling of guilt and failure. He looked at the broken chain on his calendar, that one empty box for Tuesday. The all-or-nothing voice in his head started shouting, "See? You couldn't even stick with it. You've failed. What's the point of even trying today? The perfect record is gone." That voice was so convincing that he didn't write on Wednesday either, or Thursday. A week went by and his novel was gathering digital dust. He was stuck in the mud of his own perfectionism. Feeling desperate, he read a book about habits where he came across a simple but transformative rule: never miss twice. The author explained that missing your habit once is an accident. Life happens. But missing it 2 days in a row is the beginning of a new, negative habit. The most important goal after a slip-up is not to worry about the past, but simply to get back on track immediately. The key is to break the cycle of guilt and inaction. Mark realized that his problem wasn't missing one day. His problem was how he responded to missing one day. He decided to try a new approach. He forgave himself for the missed week. He told himself, "Okay, life got in the way. It happens. My only job today is to show up." He sat down at his desk, but instead of trying to write his usual 500 words, which felt overwhelming, he told himself, "My only goal is to write one sentence." It was a tiny goal, just like Daniel's 2-minute walk. He opened his document and typed one simple sentence. The morning sun was warm on his face. That was it. But that one sentence was everything. It was the act of restarting. It broke the spell of failure. And once he had written one sentence, he found it easier to write another. And then a paragraph. He didn't hit 500 words that day, but it didn't matter. He had gotten back on track. He had not missed twice. This became his new mantra. No matter what happened, he would always make sure to show up the next day, even if it was just for one sentence. And with this new, more forgiving system, he eventually finished his novel. This is a lesson I want you to carry with you on your English learning journey. You will miss a study session. It is inevitable. When that happens, please do not fall into the all-or-nothing trap. Do not let one mistake become an excuse to give up. Be a friend to yourself. Acknowledge that you're human. Forgive the slip. And then, the very next day, your only goal is to not miss twice. You don't have to do a full hour of study. Just do your 2-minute habit. Open your book. Listen to 1 minute of a podcast. Say one sentence in English. The size of the action is irrelevant. The act of showing up is everything. That is the essence of resilient self-discipline. It's not about being perfect. It's about being persistent. As we continue to explore the landscape of the disciplined mind, we encounter another powerful concept: the distinction between motivation and discipline. Most people believe that to achieve great things, they need to feel motivated. They wait for a surge of inspiration, a wave of energy that will carry them effortlessly toward their goals. They watch motivational videos or read inspiring quotes, hoping to catch this magical feeling. But here's a hard truth. Motivation is a fickle friend. It is unreliable, unpredictable, and it will inevitably abandon you when you need it most, especially on the days that are hard, boring, or tiring. Discipline, on the other hand, is like a loyal, steady companion. Discipline is what you do when you don't feel like doing it. It's the engine that keeps you going when the fuel of motivation has run dry. A person who relies on motivation only works when they feel good. A person who relies on discipline works whether they feel good or not, because they have made a commitment to the process, not to the feeling. Let's explore this through the story of Emily, a character who decided to tackle a very modern challenge: her addiction to her phone. Emily was smart, social, and creative, but she felt like her life was slipping through her fingers. She would spend hours every day scrolling through social media, watching short videos, and playing games on her phone. It wasn't that she enjoyed it that much. It was just an automatic habit. She would pick up her phone to check the time, and 45 minutes later, she would look up, dazed, wondering where the time had gone. This habit was stealing her time, her focus, and her ability to be present in her own life. She wanted to read more books, learn to play the guitar, and spend quality time with her family. But her phone was always there, offering a constant stream of easy, mindless entertainment. One day, after realizing she had spent an entire Saturday afternoon on her phone, she felt a powerful wave of motivation. "That's it," she declared. "I'm deleting all my social media apps. I'm going on a digital detox." She deleted the apps, and for the first 2 days, she felt amazing. She felt free, clear-headed, and proud of herself. But then, the motivation started to fade. On the 3rd day, she felt bored and restless. The urge to just see what was happening online was incredibly strong. The feeling of missing out was intense. Her brain was screaming for its usual dose of easy stimulation. By the end of the week, she had reinstalled all the apps and was back to her old habits, now with an added layer of guilt. Her motivation-based approach had failed. She realized she needed a different strategy. She needed discipline, not just a temporary burst of enthusiasm. She decided to build a system. She didn't delete the apps again. Instead, she set clear, specific rules. She bought a simple alarm clock so she wouldn't need to use her phone in the bedroom. Her first rule: the phone charges overnight in the living room, not next to her bed. This created friction. To check her phone in the morning, she would have to physically get out of bed and go to another room. Her second rule: all notifications, except for phone calls, were turned off permanently. No more buzzes and beeps pulling her out of the present moment. Her third and most important rule: she scheduled phone time, just like any other appointment. She was allowed to use social media for 30 minutes after lunch and 30 minutes after dinner. The rest of the day, the phone was put away in a drawer. The first few weeks were not easy. She didn't feel motivated to follow her rules. In fact, she often felt annoyed and deprived. Her brain craved the old, easy habit. But this time, she didn't rely on feeling good. She relied on her system. When the urge to scroll came, she would look at the clock and tell herself, "It's not phone time yet." She focused on following the rules, not on how she felt about them. This was discipline in action. Slowly, something remarkable began to happen. The empty spaces in her day, which were once filled with mindless scrolling, started to fill up with other things. She picked up the guitar that had been sitting in the corner and started learning a few chords. She read a chapter of a book before bed, instead of looking at a screen. She had longer, more connected conversations with her family at dinner. She wasn't fighting a constant battle of willpower anymore, because her disciplined system was doing the heavy lifting. After a few months, she no longer felt deprived. She felt in control. She had used discipline to reclaim her time and her attention, and in doing so, she had rediscovered the joy of the real world. Emily's story teaches us that true freedom doesn't come from doing whatever we feel like in the moment. That is often a form of slavery to our impulses. True freedom comes from discipline. The ability to choose what you want most over what you want now. Think about your own English practice. There will be many days when you don't feel motivated to study. You will feel tired. You will feel bored. You will feel like you're not making progress. On those days, motivation will not help you. But your discipline will. Your simple 2-minute habit, your commitment to the system, will carry you through. The disciplined student who studies for 15 minutes every day, even on the bad days, will always surpass the motivated student who studies for 3 hours only when they feel inspired. So, let go of the need to feel motivated. Instead, fall in love with the process. Fall in love with the quiet satisfaction of showing up day after day. That is the heart of discipline. Finally, to bring all these ideas together and make them as real and relatable as possible for you, let me tell you one last story. This is the story of Maria, a woman whose journey mirrors that of so many English learners around the world. Maria lived in a country where English was not widely spoken, but she had a big dream. She wanted to get a promotion at her international company, a promotion that would require her to communicate confidently in English in meetings and emails. Her goal was clear: become fluent in English. But this goal felt huge, like a distant, unreachable mountain. Initially, Maria tried the motivation approach. She would buy new textbooks, download the latest language apps, and for a week, she would study with intense passion. She would tell everyone about her goal. But soon, the initial excitement would wear off. The grammar felt confusing. She was afraid of making mistakes when she tried to speak, and she felt like she wasn't making progress fast enough. The huge mountain of fluency seemed to get bigger, not smaller. After a few weeks, the textbooks would start to gather dust, and she would fall back into her old routine, feeling disappointed in herself. One day, after another failed attempt, Maria was listening to a podcast much like this one. She heard the stories of people who had achieved their goals not through massive bursts of effort, but through small, disciplined systems. A light bulb went on in her head. She realized her approach was all wrong. She decided to stop focusing on the giant goal of fluency, and instead focus on building a disciplined system for learning. First, she practiced self-awareness, just like Maya. For 1 week, she observed her daily routine. She realized her best, most focused energy was in the morning, right after her first cup of coffee. She also noticed that her biggest time waster was watching random videos on the internet in the evening when she felt tired. Next, She built her system of small, consistent actions inspired by Daniel's 2-minute walk. Her new rule was simple. Every morning, while I drink my coffee, I will do 15 minutes of English practice. That was it. Not an overwhelming 2 hours, just 15 minutes. It was so manageable that she couldn't make excuses. She broke down her learning into a weekly schedule. On Mondays, she would learn 5 new vocabulary words using a flashcard app. On Tuesdays, she would read 1 page of a book in simple English. On Wednesdays, she would listen to a short 5-minute segment of a podcast and try to write down what she heard. It was a simple, repeatable system. Then, she tackled her environment, like Chloe. She created a small, clean English corner at her kitchen table. She put her English textbook and a notebook there, so it was the first thing she saw in the morning. To combat her evening distraction, she made a new rule. Her laptop had to be shut down by 9 p.m. Instead, she placed the English book she was reading on her bedside table. This made the good habit easy, and the bad habit harder. She also began the inner battle of mastering her thoughts, just like Ben. When she tried to speak and her mind whispered, "You sound so stupid. Your pronunciation is terrible," she learned to catch that thought. She would check it. Is it really terrible? Or am I just learning? Is it possible to communicate even with mistakes? Then she would change it to, I am bravely practicing speaking a new language. Each mistake is a lesson. I am proud of myself for trying. Of course, it wasn't a perfect journey. There were days she missed her 15-minute session, but she remembered Mark's rule. Never miss twice. If she missed a Tuesday, she made absolutely sure she did her 15 minutes on Wednesday, even if she didn't feel like it. She learned the discipline of self-forgiveness and persistence, and importantly, she incorporated rest, like Sarah. She realized that trying to cram too much information into her brain was counterproductive. She took weekends off from active studying and would instead just casually watch a movie in English, allowing her brain to absorb the language in a relaxed way. Months went by. Maria wasn't focused on the giant mountain of fluency anymore. She was just focused on her daily system, on showing up for her 15 minutes. But one day, about a year later, she was in a team meeting at work. An English-speaking client asked a complicated question. Before she even had time to feel nervous, Maria found herself answering. She explained the situation clearly, confidently, and without hesitation. Her colleagues and her boss looked at her, impressed. In that moment, she realized it had happened. She wasn't just a student of English anymore. She was a confident English speaker. She hadn't conquered the mountain in one giant leap. She had walked up it, step by disciplined step, day by day. Maria's story is the culmination of everything we've talked about today. It shows that the path to any great achievement, especially learning a language, is not paved with grand, heroic acts of motivation. It is paved with the small, humble, and consistent stones of daily discipline. And so, we come to the end of our conversation for today. We have journeyed through stories of artists and entrepreneurs, writers and developers, and language learners just like you. We've seen how the undisciplined mind can be a prison of broken promises, and how the disciplined mind can be the key that sets us free. Let's just take a moment to recap the powerful truths we've uncovered together. We learned that self-discipline begins not with force, but with the gentle light of self-awareness. You cannot change what you do not see. We discovered that lasting change is built not on massive goals, but on ridiculously small habits that are repeated day after day, until they become as natural as breathing. We saw the wisdom in becoming the architect of our environment, making our good habits easy and our bad habits difficult. We ventured into the inner world, learning to catch, check, and change the negative thoughts that hold us captive, replacing them with thoughts that are balanced, realistic, and kind. And we learned the profound truth that true discipline is not a relentless grind, but a balanced dance between effort and rest, and that its most vital skill is not perfection, but the compassionate courage to get back on track after we stumble. Discipline is not about being hard on yourself. It is not about punishment or restriction. In its truest form, self-discipline is an act of profound self-love. It is the commitment to give your future self the gift of the dreams you hold today. It is saying, I value my long-term happiness more than my short-term comfort. This is a skill. It is not a talent you are born with. It is a muscle that you can train, starting today, with one small repetition. And this journey is deeply connected to your goal of mastering English. Every time you choose to do your 15 minutes of practice when you'd rather be doing something else, you are not just learning vocabulary or grammar. You are strengthening your discipline muscle. And this muscle will serve you in every single area of your life. The focus you build while studying will help you at work. The persistence you learn from getting back on track will strengthen your relationships. The confidence you gain from mastering your own mind will allow you to walk into any room and speak, not just with better English, but with a deeper sense of self-respect. So, here is my invitation to you, my challenge. Don't just let these ideas be interesting thoughts that you forget by tomorrow. Choose one thing. Just one single idea from our entire conversation today that resonated with you. Maybe it's Maya's distraction journal. Maybe it's Daniel's 2-minute habit. Perhaps it's Chloe's strategy of moving her phone to another room. Or maybe it's Ben's technique for challenging a negative thought. Choose just one. And I want you to start today. Not tomorrow, not next week. Today. Make one small, concrete action. What will it be? I would genuinely love to know. The act of sharing your commitment with others makes it more real, more powerful. So please, go to the comments section below and tell us. What is the one small step you will take today to begin disciplining your mind? Your comment might just be the inspiration that someone else needs to start their own journey. Thank you for sharing your time and your attention with me today here on English in Fluency. It has been an honor to walk with you on this path. Remember, this is a journey, not a destination. Be patient with yourself. Be kind to yourself. And just keep showing up. You are capable of so much more than you can possibly imagine. Until next time, I'm Alex. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep building the disciplined mind that will create the life you truly deserve.